Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Mothers. It's been a pretty magical full circle experience putting this podcast together. So many people from various parts of my life are all coming together to create something good and useful for the world. How awesome is that? Our guest today is no exception. I first learned about April Soderstrom through various husband connections. April's husband, Ben Rowitz, was sharing office space with my husband, Jason, in downtown Boston. Ben, as many know, is like this sneaky celebrity in Boston because he's Tom Brady's guy. In practice, he's this wonderfully genuine, honest, real person attached to a mega celebrity, which I've always thought must be an exciting but complicated experience. Anyway, Jason came home one night and was like, we should have Ben and April over for dinner. And I was immediately like, who is this April chick? I did my research. I fell in love with her jewelry. And I will say, as someone who needs to be braver and bolder when it comes to style, April's line of jewelry was a perfect onboarding to what real fashion is. It's on the one hand simple, elegant, timeless, and also can be edgy and bright and bold, but always with a generous spirit that's kind of rooted in helping you have fun and feel your best. It's not about the jewelry. It's about you, the person wearing it. So maybe a week after Jason came home with this dinner idea, there was a Boston Magazine spread highlighting the dynamic duo that is Ben and April, talking about April fulfilling orders for her company within days of giving birth to her first child, with a smile on her face. And as someone who felt like I couldn't put pants on or stand for days without my butt falling out after delivering my first child, I was again like, now really, who is this April chick? Turns out she really is a gem. Considerate, present, warm, peaceful, very mentally healthy. You can imagine her being the coolest girl at a dive bar and also the favorite guest at the Grammys. That's innate, but I also learned through our discussion that maybe, just maybe, that magical skill of being calm in the storm was refined in no other place but her pageantry experience. Yes, as we discuss, essentially on a dare, April ran for Miss Massachusetts twice, making it top 15 and top 5, just to prove someone wrong. But I digress. This pod is about April the mother, who, like all of us, is bravely figuring it out as she goes, building a beautiful and successful jewelry brand with a cult following, corralling 2 young kids, hanging with Giselle, making snacks, running the PTO, being the consummate better half to Ben, and managing to not lose herself in the process. And honestly, she makes it all seem wonderful. So, without further ado, I give you April Soderstrom. That's a whole other scene.
That's a big commitment too. Like all of a sudden you're like very much responsible for a lot of things.
Right. For like letting people know things that are happening. Yeah. Like all kids need to wear red shirts tomorrow.
Email sent out at midnight. You're like,
I got that email yesterday and my child is not wearing red. It's like, if you want me to put red on them, you fucking put red on them.
Yeah.
But if you were sending me an email, April, I probably would listen.
Yeah, I definitely add like a smiley face or a heart at the end to like soften it.
Totally.
Yeah. But I'm liking Miami. We're kind of, we're figuring it out. It's been a fun adventure, and we have some friends down here, so it's kind of like a built-in group of friends, which is nice.
So good.
Yeah.
I mean, not to make you jealous, but it hit 42 degrees here today.
Pretty spicy.
You're looking a little more gray than the glow I'm experiencing.
You're glistening. I'm pasty and sitting by an electric heater, a space
so
heater
dry.
in my face.
It's so dry.
Which window to sit by? Which window?
Okay, but do we have our phones on silent? You have like headphones in or whatever, AirPods?
Headphones in.
Crushing
Phone's
it.
Always on silent, which is a problem.
Love that for you. No.
Good.
I just never
available.
Never available. I'll get it. I'll eventually get it, but I don't want it ringing and alarming anyone.
Yes, true. Okay, so, I mean, I've admired you in many ways from a distance in the Boston magazines and within my living room occasionally, which is I feel very lucky. And you have so many chapters in your story as to like how we reach April in Miami. I would just love your version of kind of how, when you look back, like how do you tell the story and kind of what are the through lines that you see? And then V and I will try not to interrupt with questions, but we might.
I'll try and make it not too long because it's a wild bit of a journey. And I think when I was reading your interview questions, I was thinking about this and I'm like, what is the through line?
How does this make sense?
And I think the through line is that I just make a decision and I move on.
Yes.
And I don't do a lot of like, well, maybe that would have been a better idea. Like, whatever, it's over. Like, I'm done.
Yeah.
But I went to school for interior design. I guess we'll start in college. I've always been super artsy. And my parents were never like I almost got a degree in ceramics, which would have been fine.
Yes.
But and I was so close. And my parents were never like, maybe not. They were like, okay, pottery.
You could do so much with it.
Well, I imagine you always showed up as a kid who could, like, you would do it really well.
You'd figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure it out. But I veered in college and I was like, well, I'll do interior design. I can like see that you go work at a company and do interior design. So I got my degree in interior design and a minor in entrepreneurship. And I moved to Boston right away and got a job designing massive office spaces for like Bank of America.
Wow.
And
sexy.
Yeah.
So amazing.
Super creative.
But useful to learn. I started randomly was in like financial services in a PR brandy way. And I was like, this is the most boring place to be doing this, but also useful to learn how to exist within constraints.
Yeah.
That's the best way to describe it. You're like, I have this idea. And they're like, the red isn't, it's not, no. It's
totally.
A no.
Yes.
And then I moved to another firm, did some restaurant design, and I never really loved it. I think I like in college, you do these big designs and they're all from your head and you do them in a couple days or in a week. And then you enter the real world and interior design can take years. And whatever your idea was gets beaten down to, it just wasn't for me artistically.
Yeah.
And one of my clients kept trying to hire me as his assistant. And I was like, you're so difficult to work with right now. And the firm I was at eventually was laying people off. And he heard about it through the grapevine. And he called and he's like, I'll hire you. And I'm like, I'll give you 2 years. That's it.
And now he's your husband. No, I'm just kidding.
Close.
Different story, but similar.
They recently hung out together and it was like,
that's funny.
They're like FaceTiming me and I'm like, no. But I became his executive assistant, which I had never done before, but I ended up doing for 7 years. And I loved it because it was type A, like super organized. And he didn't care what I did with my time as long as his work got done. And so while I was working for him, I started the jewelry business because I was bored and I had no creative outlet. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm sitting at my desk making bracelets, waiting for the phone to ring or send emails. And then I started a website and that was in 2012. And it was a very slow story from there. I still worked full time for him until 2016, 2017. And then quit and did it full time.
Yeah,
so
the side hustle.
It wiggled its way to where it became my full time kind of gig.
So, one thing that you have maybe on purpose glossed over that I didn't know until I read the clips that you sent over. Were you maybe almost Miss Massachusetts?
Ooh,
we can cut this. We can cut this if you want.
True story on this.
It's like, wait a second. Yeah, wait, tell me quick vignette. Tell me what. Tell me the scoop.
Quick vignette.
Yes.
My roommate, his boyfriend was obsessed with pageants. Obsessed. And he's a hairstylist in Boston, amazing hairstylist. And one night we were all drinking and he's like, you're going to run for Miss Massachusetts. And I'm like, I would never. And then my roommate, his boyfriend goes, well, she'd lose anyway. And I was like,
no, what a dick. Now I'm running.
It's on.
Yes.
So it was like a drunken dare. And I was like, a good excuse to get in good shape, do something different. Why not?
Yes.
So I did it. And the first year I made top 15. And it was one of those things that I was like,
crazy.
I saw my failings and I was like, oh, I can do so much better. And so I'm like, I'm going to do one more year. And I got to top 5.
Amazing.
And then I aged out, thank God.
Was there an age limit? I didn't know it was a age-gated thing.
They've changed that.
Maybe.
Now you can be married, you can be divorced. Before it was like you couldn't have kids, and now they've opened the floodgates.
This is a whole other tangent we need to go. We need to do an episode about pageantry and mothers. But yeah.
But it did start. It was part of the reason I started my company, because I bought the things you have to buy for pageants, because you get this dress. Yeah. And then you can't just go buy earrings at Macy's. So I had someone custom make earrings to match my dress. And they were so much money. And me and my I can do anything. I was like, I can make these. Yeah. And so I started doing that. I started making pageant jewelry and bridal jewelry and did that for a long time. So there was a lot of bedazzling that happened in my
that's
the original part of my business. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
One of the reasons I love asking this question is, and many people have done the exercise before, but for a lot of people, most people, life isn't like this linear experience of like, I did A so that I could get to B so I could just get to C. Or if that was true, I'm like not that interested. I love the process of, we tell, like, who came up with this quote? Like, we are the stories that we say about ourselves. And how every experience really does build to something else useful. Totally. And especially as you were saying that you are someone who's like, I make a decision and then on to the next. So yeah, I'm not surprised, but I think it's really, it's so cool that each of these experiences that wouldn't necessarily add up to something else, like they do. And I think
totally did.
Yes. Yes.
And one of the girl who won the first year, so she was Miss Massachusetts. I was top 15 because of my sad walk and failure to, I just didn't have it.
Sad walk.
So she won that year. She eventually started her own accessories PR company. We became friends. I started my jewelry business and she's like, I can get you in some magazines. And I was like, okay, sure. Okay,
cool. Yes.
And so she was a big catalyst in kind of getting me some clout in the beginning too. So it's, amazing.
That's so cool.
Works in mysterious ways.
Yes. I also love that these pageants there's what you see of the experience as a quote consumer, which feels like a gross term to describe that, the audience. But then there's behind the scenes, it's like, actually, guys, this is not about the thing that you're seeing. This is actually about connection, community, empowerment, and helping each other move on to a different element of a career. I think that's so cool.
It was. I always say, because of doing that, I'm not scared of anything. Yeah. Any interview, anything. I don't get stage fright. I paraded around with a bikini glued to my butt and nothing.
Me too.
Do you really glue it?
Oh, that's why it doesn't ride up. I mean, I haven't watched one in a while. They may have a much different shape. We did more of a full coverage. And there was a glue stick to keep it taut so that it didn't.
The more you know.
I know, right? We've adding value here to our listeners. Now you've learned something useful.
I don't know if you want to. I think listeners nowadays, or maybe it's just Miami, but the up.
Oh yeah,
middle is
right.
We're just looking at butts now. That's all it is.
Just butts.
Okay, so you launch as April Soderstrom, and then in 2012 you grind it out. 2016ish, you go full time, and you have this beautiful the featherweight collection, which I really do love. And shout out to you and to my husband, who every birthday was like, okay, here's some jewelry from April. And I was like, thank God. So I love them all. And I love that they are light and easy. And they do actually kind of really work well in a mothering context where I'm like, this is not going to get in the way, but it's fun. And then you have the name game jewelry, which has become a thing. Everyone I know has, and maybe did Taylor Swift like steal the idea from you? Did all of her fans take your bracelet idea?
I was, doing the bead kits before Taylor Swift was.
Yeah, totally.
Swifties.
Yes, you should be getting like a percentage of every
really,
Taylor Swift concert.
I really should. Actually, that was a huge catalyst, and I had a few years of just hanging on for dear life business-wise, where the pandemic started.
Yeah.
We're on lockdown. A couple months before the pandemic, so we were living in a 4th floor walk up in Boston, and we had our oldest at the time. The girl underneath us was moving out, and my business had grown enough that I was like, well, let's rent that apartment and turn that into my office. And so we did. And then the pandemic started, and it actually worked out great because Ben and I had like one office to work out of.
Yeah.
And everybody was home, and I was like, I'm gonna do these little bead bracelets with letters on them because everybody can wear the names, of their loved ones, or send one to a friend. I was like, all right, well, people are at home, kids are at home, they have nothing to do. And I'm like, what do I have? And I have so much stuff because I'm a collector of arts and crafts supplies. And so I'm like, well, I'll start selling bead kits. And I sold, it just skyrocketed so quickly. And I remember there were days I was making like 100 name game bracelets a day.
Yeah.
And Ben and I are like staying up till midnight packaging, and because I couldn't hire anybody because we're, April of 2020.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was so fun. It was so fun. And I'm like making all these bead kits, and they the two of those items became huge staples of my company now.
And you had kids then. So how old were your kids at that point?
Lex was like 2.5. So I just had Lex at that time, just our oldest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think it also forced me to be relatable. I think until then,
you were just a glamour pageant queen. Now you're just like us.
I took myself so seriously.
Oh,
like
yeah.
It's like, I'm like, I've got this jewelry company. I'm putting up these photos that I take that I have to meticulously Photoshop, and there's nothing in the background, wiping any, traces of crap of what happens.
Yeah.
And I was running ads on Facebook and Instagram, and I had taken photos of the name game bracelets once. And Lex was in the background, this big 2-year-old belly and a metal trash can over his head. And he's standing in the distance while I'm trying to perfectly light.
Yes.
And I didn't even notice it until I took the photo. And then I'm like, whatever, I'm running that ad with him as in the back. You can't even see his face.
Yes.
It blew up because people are like, I get it. Like, it's not just a bracelet. Like, it ended up like his little head was in his hands or in photos. And like, had him like do little reviews of bead kits, and it just, because he's there, like he's in the office.
Yeah.
And so I think it like, I don't know, it really put my face and self to the company, which I think makes people a lot more excited to kind of join in on a brand.
Totally. And was that, you're describing it now in a way that makes it seem so easy and joyful and positive.
Everything looks beautiful.
In reality, I mean, the pandemic for everybody was horrendous in unique ways for their situation. But the pandemic with small kids is wildly stressful. Or at least I experienced it that way, where it's like, I always struggled to do both at once, as one should. Like, okay, I'm trying to focus on some work related thing, and I have a kid that I'm trying to kind of like force on a screen, but I don't want to, and they're on my face. How in reality was it like that for you, or were you like very zen about it?
There was a lot of non-zen moments, but I think we were lucky in the sense that he was still so young. He wasn't in school. And, he's still napping a lot. We still had that kind of scheduled time, and he didn't know what was going on. And so I think we could live very small with just him, and it wasn't as awful as it could have been.
Yeah.
But like right now with him being 6.5 and another one at 3.5, I can see that being so much harder.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was timing wise. We always said like that as much as it was hard for us, it wasn't as hard as it could have been.
Yeah. Was it also in some way a relief when that photo with your kid in the background was essentially successful and loved? To kind of like, oh, was there a relief, whatever exhale moment of?
I think it just showed me to stop. Not that I was pretending anything, but I think you have this idea of what your business has to be, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to look, I had this like, if I have this website and it looks this way, nobody's going to know that it's just me.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this moment there you're like, it's kind of great for people to realize they're buying from one person or a small business. I eventually hired, one person who stayed with me for a really long time and had some other people helping on the side. But I think in the beginning you try so hard to look big.
Totally.
And then it just kind of proved to me that it didn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. So one question I had, this is even before I actually knew you, I came across this Boston Magazine article that was featuring you and Ben, deservedly so. And actually, this is funny because in the moment, this was, I don't know, what year is it? It's 2025 now. So this was like 8 years ago or something?
Lex was like 8 weeks old.
Okay.
I think I'm holding him in it.
Yeah. So yes, one of the lead quotes was, I have it here, I'm going to read it. This is from Ben describing you. He says, I get excited for our kids to grow up and be like, my mom is a badass entrepreneur grinding away. When I'm home and I see her with the kids strapped to her, bouncing at her desk while making jewelry and typing on her computer, I'm like, it's unbelievable. And I remember reading that quote before knowing you at all. And I was just curious how you were feeling. And I also was curious because I think there's so many images of women grinding it out. I was even talking to someone the other day about like Mayor Wu in Boston just had a baby and the next day was like doing press conferences, and they're sort of glorifying the grind, this literally the word of like grinding it out with a kid strapped to my back, like doing it all at the same time right away. And there is beauty in it and it really is admirable. And Ben's right. Like it's unbelievable. I'm just curious, like how you were feeling in those moments, because it's astonishing, but also would we like it? Is it how we wanted it to be? Or are we doing this because we had to? Why isn't Ben doing this with the kid strapped to his chest? Like,
one thing about that quote, Ben and I always say, like everybody talks about their love languages.
Yeah.
Ben's love language is words of affirmation, and mine is acts of service. I don't need to hear anything. Do.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah. I'm a doer. So like if I love you, I may not say anything, but stuff gets done. And Ben will be like, I just saw, I just wanted to let you know that I saw you packed all the kids' clothes for vacation.
I saw you do that.
You thought of all the things, and I want you to know. And I'm like, get in the game. Get in the game. But he is, and I mean this in the most, he always does make me feel so valued.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think in hearing that quote now, while I'm like in a much different place, like I hear it and I'm like, oh yeah. But I think it was different because my business was mine.
Yeah.
It was, if I was needing to, go grind for some big company that didn't like have my heart in it, that was different. Like I had Levi, my second, November 16th. And so we were in Black Friday and I had one other girl working for me, and I was excited to just throw him on and go package orders and see the little notes on the order saying, I'm buying this for my grandma for Christmas. Yeah. And like, I think it was for me, I was very lucky that it was a different situation, that I wasn't having my hormonal sweats in an office, in a conference room. I'm at home in my sweatpants and nobody cares what I look like. And my kids are around, but while it was busy and hard, it still felt good to be doing what I was doing. And it was 100% by choice. Like
Mm-hmm.
I could have, I guess I say that, but it's like, if you slow down your business or you don't take orders, you're killing your, but it was as tough as it was different because it was my child, my other child.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally. I was just going to say, I've always wanted to somehow be working for myself and building my own thing versus working for another company. And there is such a different motivation. The mindset is very different, where it is like, I'm excited to get out there and grind it out a little bit. Like I'm, spending more time than I was even when I was working other places that were very demanding. But like the why is so different, and it's such an extension of kind of your identity. And that it is nice to share with your kids. Like doing this stuff has been really fun. Our oldest, like, we get into GarageBand together and we're using microphones. It's a connection as opposed to a disconnection, I feel like, when working for a big company. Yeah.
And I had a ton of help too. So it was Ben's parents. It's kind of, I have fond memories of it, even though it was chaotic. I wasn't just laying there cuddling a newborn. I'm processing orders, but I had so much family around to help. The woman who worked with me was amazing. Mm-hmm. And I have so many photos of her just holding Levi, especially because that's when it was Black Friday, whereas Lex was born in the summer, which is quiet time. Mm-hmm. So I have fond memories of it because it was, and there were times where I just be like, all right, I need to go get horizontal.
Yeah.
Because I had a baby 5 days ago.
Yes, totally.
But it was okay. And there were no hours, I didn't have to, it was just different. Yeah. And I think I feel very lucky that I had that experience.
It's so special for them to be able to look back on this too and say like, wow, that's so cool that like my mom did this with me. I was a part of this. This was something that you guys got to experience.
Right.
Maybe Ben was right. Ben, you're right.
Well, and I think it's also like, I think a friend told me this a while ago, and it stuck with me as a mother, is that you will like different parts of parenting differently, different ages differently. And you're not going to love all of them. Some ages, some time periods will be very hard for you as a mom to enjoy. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of freeing to not be like I've realized, like, I loved the baby phase. And I know I'll probably get, in trouble for saying, I liked the late nights. Waking up in the middle of the nights and doing feedings because it was quiet and it was that time of like solitude and and so like I thrived in that period. And now that I have
opinions and thoughts.
Now it's different.
Yeah.
But I think now I've slowed down. Now I'm not working as hard because my kids are, they're not napping 15 hours a day.
Right.
They need me and they see what's going on. And so now I'm definitely not working as hard now. So it's kind of like ebbing and flowing based on ages.
Maybe tell me more about that, because I think that's really interesting. It's interesting to me and interesting to think a lot of people about how, there is, again, to this sort of linear type A, achieve path. I think that my experience was once I had kids, and certainly once those kids became a certain age, like what I wanted to achieve and how I wanted to achieve it started, like, it didn't change, but it sort of like it became fuller. It wasn't just like one thing. It was like actually sort of a range of experiences. And I'm curious how you think about, you started this business that was growing, and then you had a kid, and obviously, and then you had another kid. I'm curious how like your ambition for the business, or your sense of where the role it played in your kind of identity, how that evolved and continues to evolve over time with kids. Like, has it shifted? Because I think a lot of people think, oh, well, now you have kids, so you're going to stop working. You don't really care, which is not what it is. But I'm curious, like, it's deeper than that, and it's intentional. It's a choice, and it's sort of realizing where fulfillment comes from and what success feels like and wants to be and what achievement is. And obviously, depending on life circumstances, what is possible. But I'm curious how you think about the role kids have played in evolving your ambitions for the business and yourself.
It's, like you said, like, I don't want to say the ambition dissipates a little bit, but it changes. It definitely changes. Like I've said to Ben before, like, I'll know, and I guess I won't know because I won't be there, but like if at my funeral, everyone's talking about April, the jewelry designer, like mm-hmm. That's a fail. Like, I don't like, one of my happiest things, like when I go out with my girlfriends, I feel like very little time is ever spent talking about what we do. Mm-hmm. Like we're not sitting around talking about what everybody's doing in the office. We're, connecting about our lives and what we're up to and how we're feeling. And I think I'm adjusting the business in the sense that I'm not like focused as much on the bottom line. Like like before it was like, Shark Tank, where it's like, I can spend so much money to make so much money, but then you're only really making so much money because you're spending so much money. But the potential is that all of those people keep coming back. And it's like, I don't want to play that game. So I'm kind of I love the jewelry business, but I feel like I'm edging into my next phase as an artist. I don't know exactly what that'll be. Poor Ben just sees weird stuff piling up all the time. He's the most encouraging husband ever when it comes to my art. Like, I made him this, I've really been wanting to do like big pieces of artwork. So that could be my next phase. Nice. And I made him this big piece of artwork out of string for Christmas, but I made it inside. And then when you go outside in Miami, there's humidity. And so literally the whole thing just like sagged. No. It's hanging in his office. Ideal. And I'm like, that's my girl. That's my girl. I'm like, you can take it down. You can take it down. I'm like, I'm going to redo it and I'm going to get it right. I'm going to figure it out. Yes. But I feel like I need to test out some kind of like you guys, like what you're talking about. Like I'm in this, I want to do something a little different. I've been doing some more almost like bigger projects with some corporate clients. I did a big charm bar event with Ann Taylor Loft. Yeah, they had a opening in Boston. So some like interactive experiences. I'm working with this charity in Colorado that I love that they provide birthday parties, like cake presents to kids in foster care. And so like I'm getting them jewelry for the older girls and older kids and bead kits. And so kind of I'm getting a little bit more focused when it comes to the jewelry versus just how many people can I get to. Yeah. And so I think that's changed with kids. I'm narrowing down a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be a little more like intentional with your time.
Yeah.
It's more precious.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when you're out in the world doing all these rock star things, where is your identity as a mother? Where does being a mother sit in your list of how you identify?
I think now it's pretty high. It's pretty high. I think once you become a mother, whether you're working or you're not working, and you start talking to other mothers and you hear about their lives before kids, their lives currently, and you just kind of realize like we're all just kind of trying to hang on, whether we're working full time or we're taking time off. And I think I have such an appreciation for other moms that I'm kind of, it's just very cool to be part of the group. Yeah. And I mean, I know the internet always makes you feel like it's competitive and there's guilt and that sort of thing. But I think when you really talk to other mothers, that's not there.
Yeah.
I think the internet's like, oh, my kid got these Valentines at school and it made me feel bad about my Valentines. Meanwhile, I'm like, my kid was thrilled with every little thing he came home with. Like, I think if you are actually talking to other moms, there's a lot of camaraderie there.
Yeah.
And so I think like it ranks high right now. And that not just because I hear the word mom every 2 seconds.
I know, totally. That's so great because I think, and one of the reasons I was drawn to this topic in general is that being a mother was something, I mean, I never like dream boarded, I'm going to get married and I'm going to have kids, but I sort of just like thought that would happen and that would be cool. But I never really knew how I wanted to be a mom or what it meant to be a mom. And I think I honestly was like, I don't really want to be known as a mom. Like there was something that felt I don't know, like that's not enough, which is such a is not true, obviously. But I think part of why I'm interested in this topic is like, I know that's not correct. I want to expand my way of thinking, but I think that experience was really reinforced by a lot of the schooling and the companies I worked for that are very masculine oriented, and where being a mother, you know, to the point of maybe you shouldn't have pictures of your kids on your desk. And even articles that are like, if you have pictures of your kid on your desk, like you're more likely to get fired, which can't possibly be true. Like there's so many other things going on.
Well, and it's like when you tell them that you're pregnant and you got to hide it for a little while, and then it's all about how fast you're going to come back. And I think that's like, it's crazy. We all came into the world, men, women, like that way. Like we should be a lot more forgiving. It should be a lot more celebrated. I feel like.
Did you have that ever? You seem like you seem very mentally healthy, but you seem very
really do. I'm like,
you seem like every move feels very intentional, and you see the good in it, and it's enriching for you. And there's sort of just this, I don't know, a universal view of it as opposed to like an individualistic approach, which I think is my problem, where I'm like, this is about me. But how did you ever confront that feeling of like, I kind of want to separate my motherness from my workness, business, Aprilness?
I think it's never really been about the business, but I do think there's this struggle to maintain self as a mother, especially as a work from home mother. I mean, you see my work stuff here. On the other side of my desk is a walking spider, a lot of balls and cars. So my office currently is the playroom because there's no space in Miami. So I think I have to actively try and maintain myself. And for me, it's really meditative to make something new. So I'm like, if I can just sit for an hour and make a new necklace, whether or not anything comes of it, it feels good. It feels like me. And so I think that's where I kind of hang on to that area. But I think I was lucky when I had kids that I already had my jewelry business established. And I wasn't trying to navigate, working in a big interior design firm. And as much as working from home, it's really hard to ever feel like you're in one place. But I think that's motherhood. I think another friend told me that was like, you will never feel like you are 100% somewhere. So it's like, even when you go to an office, if your kid's at daycare and you just had a baby, like you're a few places at once mentally.
Yes.
And so working from home, like I never feel like I'm fully at work. But it's also a blessing to just be at home in the event somebody gets sick at school.
Totally. Kind of let it happen versus trying to hold on so tight to these boundaries and separation. I think
I wrote a few things for the new year, and go with the flow is high on my list. Even when it comes to like battling with the kids, I always try and ask myself, do I want to die on this hill?
Is this worth it?
And the answer is usually no.
Right.
So like carry on throwing water all over the bathroom because I can't.
Eat the candy. I don't care.
I don't want to die.
Yes.
With kids, especially at this age, it's like if you tell them no, you can't go back on that, or you've lost all control. And so
respect gone.
Gone. So it's like, do I really want to say no?
Yes. This is actually, maybe you've read this book in support of that mantra, but Mel Robbins just came out with her latest book platform is this concept of let them. I will say I have not read the book, but I get the idea. But it's that. Yes. And it is sort of like, just let it happen because to your point, like pick and choose your battles. I totally agree.
Right.
Do you feel, you've kind of mentioned this a little bit. And I think it's, maybe you've done a nice job of creating a life where you've brought yourself into places where you can be kind of your full self. But I'm curious if you feel seen as a mother kind of in society, in the workplace. It sounds like certainly within your marriage, but like, do you feel like that's honored and elevated and seen?
I think it depends where you're looking. Mm-hmm. Like at home, I definitely feel seen, like too seen as a mother.
Yeah.
I prefer you guys to see me less as a mother. But outside of my home, I feel like if I always say like the internet in particular will serve you whatever you're looking for, whatever you don't want to see.
Yes.
And so I think like the less time I spend kind of on those sort of things, the better I just feel about everything. And I'm in that age frame where most of my friends are parents. So I feel so good when I go out with a group of girlfriends because you realize we're all doing the same thing. Just maybe on different time schedules.
Yeah.
So I think like in that regard, I feel seen. But that's like on a small scale, like I definitely think in society, it can be less, but
we're trying to make that better.
Yeah.
Did you have maybe last question, then we'll go into some gentle rapid fire questions, but where did you have a role model for like either coming before you were a mother or even now? Like, would you look around and have role models for how you want to be a mother? Like, did your mother have an influence over that?
My mom was around a lot. And in that regard, she was the greatest kind of influence of just like, she was just there, like she was a great mom, but she was also there and she worked. I was thinking about this morning and like, we would call her office so much. My brother and I would be like, because at that time, nowadays it's like you have a babysitter for a long time. For then, I think in the summertime we were home alone, maybe on a little younger age. But I remember I'd call, he's not letting me play Sega. And like, but somebody always answered the phone first. And I'd be like, Melissa Soderstrom, please. And they'd be like, it's April again. But she was never like, don't call me here. Yeah. She was always available. Yeah. And like, we went everywhere.
And now I have my phone on silent all the time. I'm just kidding.
That's what it is. Like my kids call me.
So yeah.
But yeah, she was always available in the sense, and so that makes me want to be there for my kids and want to show up. It also took me a long time to be like, wow, she's her own person. Yeah, she likes gardening. I didn't, like.
When I got to do that, Mom.
Yeah,
into my phone call.
She didn't until like now. I'm like, she has her own likes, and I don't think she nurtured them as enough when we were kids. But she was around, and she was always available, and we went grocery shopping with her. I try and do that with my kids more, and just like bring them with me. Even if it's painful sometimes.
Do you think back, did your mom seem happy in the experience that she was having as your mother?
Man, I feel like in my head, yes, but who knows? I think moms do an amazing job in general, hiding that from their kids, hiding the stress, hiding the my littlest, he's 3.5, and he reads my face really well. Yeah. And he'll look at me and he'll go, you frustrated? You frustrated, Mama? And I'm like, oh yeah.
Big time, honey.
Really
Big
frustrated.
Mama's about to lose it. Yes.
I'm going to walk into the room.
Coming out of Mama's ears.
You frustrated. You frustrated.
I'm going to go make some bracelets.
That's really sweet.
He's a firecracker, but I think it's funny because like, as a kid, I feel like you rarely see or realize if your parents are having a bad day. Yeah. Which is probably, makes you a strong parent, but it is good for them to kind of see that it's not always easy. Yeah. He spiked a book off my face while I was laying on the ground, and I got like an instant black eye, and he looks at me and I'm sitting there and he goes, you gonna cry? And I'm like, yeah.
You're gonna cry.
I need to meet this kid.
He's
really
got
sweet.
Little glasses, and he's serious.
Yes.
You gonna cry? I'm like, yeah.
All right, I lied. There was one more question that I meant to ask before we do our rapid fiery things. I'm obsessed with this inherited idea of having it all as a woman, as a mother, whatever. And I'm curious if it's something that you like, is having it all even on your radar, or something that we're aspiring to, or have we moved on from that? Or how do you think about having it all?
I've thought about that, and it's like, I think like I was looking at that in your list, and I'm like, what is my all? I feel like that's like my next step at, I turned 40 last year, and it's like defining what that is for me as a person.
Yeah.
And I have to like flesh that out a little bit. There's the basics of it that I'm like, we have it all. We're healthy, we're happy, we're employed. But it's like going a little bit deeper about what it all is.
Yeah. Exactly. And it can certainly evolve over time. And I do think, from what you've shared here and my impression of you, I think you're very, in a nice way, you're like, let's not overthink this. That's sort of, it's happening already. Like, let's not intellectualize what this is. Let's live a life that feels good.
Good or bad, I'm very an in the moment person. I know Ben will be like, we should sit down and talk about like 1 year, 5 year, 10-year goals. And I'm like,
probably
that's
not.
a joke. What do you think's going to happen in 5 years? We don't know. I don't
look at him like, you gonna cry?
Yes.
And he's like, we should. And I'm like,
yes.
It's like, okay.
Good to have both. Good to have both.
It is good. It is good to have both. But I think the more you plan for what you want, the better off you'll be.
Yes.
So I am trying to do a little bit more of that in my growth.
Yeah. Well, I also think that as kids get older and you have a little bit more, I mean, the chaos still continues, but there's a little more brain space. That's when you can actually be intentional about what it all, or whatever it is. But until then, you're kind of really, you can do your best, but you're really at the beck and call. It's not in your control. Like,
right.
you and I were talking about it this morning. We were like,
so much time.
So much time and so much control, like, and then a kid gets sick and then they're like, can't go to school. There's so many things that intervene to influence your intentional planning. That I think as they get older, there are fewer unexpected things, knock on wood. Like, there's more of a structured expectation, so you can kind of plan alongside it. But
I think I'm trying to be more gentle with where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And as much as I want to be ambitious and I want to do this and I want to do this, I also want to be cognizant of where I'm at right now. And like, I drop off my littlest at 9 a.m. and I pick him up at 11:30. That's like,
so much.
Oh my gosh. We got to finish. We got to finish up for you.
He can wait.
Yeah, exactly. This is my window for myself. Sorry.
But next year he'll be in school longer. And so it's kind of like, I have hopes and dreams and goals, but like, I'm okay with them waiting a little bit.
Yeah.
Not in this season. This is not the season of life for that right now.
No, but it'll get here. And that's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Some quick cues to close.
Okay.
If you could go back and tell your new mom self one thing, what would it be?
Oh man, I don't even know. Poor girl.
Aw.
It gets better.
I'd just give her a hug and be like, I feel like it's such a weird time where you think that, it's such a blip on the radar, those first few weeks that you're like, this is insanity. Mm-hmm. And it gets so much better. I remember with my second, I was like, I wish my first child self could see me with my second child self.
Yeah. We get better.
Because so much better. So much smoother. You're like, oh, he puked.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's probably fine. The dog will get
fine.
it.
It's fine. It's fine. Right. So it's like, I feel like if I could have seen myself as a second time mom, I would have been like, oh, I'm taking this way too seriously.
Yeah. I mean, how true is that for anything? Like, even when you're describing the jewelry business, like initially so intense about it, as you should be. And then you kind of like, you go through new milestones and you kind of like loosen up a little bit. But
Right. And first time mom, the world tells you everything about tummy time and this like this. And it's like, okay, my kids are fine.
They'll be fine.
Yes.
They'll be fine.
Yes. Okay. In retrospect too, is there one thing you could have given to yourself along the way that would have made mothering, parenting a little bit easier?
Patience. Can I give myself more patience?
Yeah. We can do whatever we want.
You seem so patient.
Yeah, I agree.
No, I'm not. I'm a pusher. I'm a like.
Oh, interesting.
I'm a let's get to the next step. Let's move it up the stairs to bath time. And I feel like I need to just let it happen a little bit more. Like, go with the flow. I would love
let them.
to. Yeah. Like, if they don't take a bath tonight, what happens? Like, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
More patience.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. We could do that now. I'm going to do that now. Okay. Last question. Your kids are probably not listening to this podcast right now, but one day they might. Is there anything you'd like to say to them?
I asked Lex this morning. I told him I was going to be in a podcast.
Yeah.
Now he thinks I'm going to be on TV and he's going to be disappointed. It's different.
The same.
It's the same. And I said, what should I say? Like, what? And he goes, well, tell them you have one son. And he goes, and a baby. And then he tackled his brother and like ran through the floor. And I'm like, I just, I think just the basics of just like, I love them more than anything in the absolute world. Yeah. Even if I'm frustrated sometimes.
Yes.
And I hope they turn out to be just who they want to be. I think my parents did a great job of being like, whatever I was into, that was fine. They never tried to direct me anywhere else. I was always doing some sort of weird art project. Yeah. And my dad was like, okay, I'll get out the drill and we'll do this and we'll try this. And I want to do that for them. And I hope they end up just where they want to be. Yeah, totally. Because of us being there for their needs.
Yes. Love them even if they want a ceramics degree. Like,
exactly.
I'm there for it. I'm ready to get a kiln.
Absolutely. I love
want a kiln. Well, beautiful. This was so great. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. We've learned a lot, and I'm just you should feel so proud of everything that you've accomplished and the life that you've built, and you have beautiful children. Ben was right. You're pretty badass doing it all. So thank you so much for this. V and I are going to go debrief over maybe a Fresca. I'm not even sure. We'll crack open something good. I know we're trying to get Fresca to sponsor us.
I feel like that's doable, right?
That was the general consensus.
Yes. No one drinks it.
Yes, we could make them huge.
For us. Yeah.
But it's delicious.
It's
been a long time since I've had a Fresca.
Yes, they're hard to find. They're rare.
I was just going to say, where do you purchase the Fresca?
For me, Market Basket.
Okay.
Very random. Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you guys for the best morning.
Thank you. So the best. Much. Okay, Fresca time.
I was going to say, today I have my coffee, but I wish it was a Fresca.
Me too. I know. We should do.
But I have to finish this.
Yeah, Fresca, where are you in my life? Okay, April, what a gem, pun intended. She is a marvel and makes it all seem so easy.
I know, she's so calming and like just confident in everything she says. Like, that really is how it is. Like, I feel like she's very transparent about how things are, and I respect that.
But always seems like together about it. Like, that's something I want to figure out. How does one do that? Maybe I should sidebar with her. Tell me how to live my life with my insides, not so much on the outside.
We love it.
But yeah, I was going to chime in at the time, but we moved on to another thing. But I loved, she brought up in different words, this idea of like insisting on your own joy and how that's so key to maintaining like her sense of self and identity around this creative outlet where she's like, I often feel like I might be losing myself to everything, but if I can just go and create something, whether it's used or not, and sounded almost like often it is not, but how that was just a way to come back to herself.
Love it.
And I also think that's what's so interesting when we're talking to people and like ongoing interviews, like folks that have found their way to careers that are a source of that joy, insistence, identity, how much healthier that can be. And obviously hard to do and hard to find something that you can be successful at, hard to find something like that and actually like make an income and a living off of it. But that resonated with me a lot, obviously in my period of transition, but also a lot of women kind of in this age, doesn't have to be, but I feel like we all live in many chapters that's kind of like, okay, I crushed it on that like high speed railroad track of achievement, but now I'm going to take that badassness and apply it to something that is more about me. And maybe intentionally that's like, or subconsciously we're like, okay, I'm trying to find my identity. I want my identity to be like an extension of who I am. I mean, with Sai, we have her agency and various forms of blankets and startups, and with April, obviously jewelry design, and which it sounds like is going to go into other creative outlets. But I think I am curious to hear more from folks over time who are, I don't know, haven't landed in a creative space, because that seems like such a convenient solution. I'm sure there are ways to do it outside of it, but anyway, I thought that was so healthy, and she did glow. Maybe I should move to Miami. Like, perhaps maybe that's the solve.
Access to vitamin D,
for sure. My excessive vitamins are not the same as actually seeing and experiencing the sun. I also, by the way, to this point, I'd really try that quote in the Boston Magazine. Really did pop for me when I had known of her and Ben, and then I saw the magazine spread, and I really do remember reading that quote, being like, both admiring that and also being like, is that the full story? Yeah. And it was interesting. Overall, she was like, no, that felt really good.
Yeah.
And I just hope women are grinding in places that feel good versus feel like they have to.
Yes.
So anyhow,
because that is real, and that is a thing for many of us, right? That you're on a sense of survival sometimes, but
yes. Totally.
Hey,
totally.
April, you're crushing it.
I know. All right. Quick sign off on our joy.
Yes.
If we're I'm inspired by April's creative outlets. Where am I going to find my joy? Oh, my quick answer actually today, because it, as we mentioned, is finally over 40 degrees, which feels like it might as well be 70 degrees, is I'm going to go for a run outside. I might even be a walk outside. I'm going to walk and or run.
I'm going to be outside.
Definitely not and. I will walk or run outside, because, God, we got to reconnect. We got to get out of this basement, out of the studio.
Out of the recording studio into the streets, baby. She is
We're taken to the streets. Yes. Where is your joy, Lady V?
I think maybe in two things. One is an external one is like the excitement of this week being like open and vulnerable and sharing these things vicariously. I mean, really through you.
Together.
I'm so happy that this is out here and that people are receiving it well, and that people need it and are like hearing it and resonating with it. So that's like joy that like we're touching people. Yeah. And then also, similar to what you were saying, the weather. I got to go outside without a coat on today, and it didn't hurt.
Yeah.
Good. Yes. I went to get my coffee and I didn't put a coat on, and I was like, okay.
I know. And it's like you feel naked in the best way. You're like, wow,
my
life could be so
lifting.
Easy. Yeah, right.
Like it really does feel like such a game changer. And it makes me hopeful for the rest of the year. No, but really, like I'm like, oh, I'm excited to be outside. It is wild. I mean, in all the ways I love the winter time, it really is tough.
Oof. And this has been a tough. Yeah, this is tough. And I hope I don't say this every winter. Last winter was benign.
This
winter feels relentless.
This was like particularly tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and not in a fun way, not in a like, here's a blizzard,
it's
like
so
once or twice.
No, it just
in a like, we're like on the moon, like it's constantly frozen over tundra. Like I don't even know, like we need a spacesuit to go outside.
No, it's bad.
And it won't go away.
Everything is icy.
Yeah.
Like, no one has ice melt.
Yes. And as you know, we famously have New England's worst driveway.
I don't.
So
whoever
steep,
built your driveway
windy,
is not.
The paving is shitty. I also our neighbors have similar, not quite as bad decline.
Yours is way worse.
6 hours after the snow, their side, it's always melted. Ours is still just like icy and crazy. No, I don't know. Maybe they just did something nice in their past life and we're being punished.
No. TBT to the time my U-Haul got stuck in your
Oh, I know. We still have the tire marks in our driveway to think of you always.
So
no, don't be sorry. I love it. It's what the fuck we're going to do in that driveway anyway. It's like a tattoo. It's a scar. I love it. Actually, my favorite part about that experience was the sound that it made. When you were getting out, it was like spitting out tires. And then our neighbors at the time came over like, is everything okay?
Actually,
and I was like,
no, it's not.
They're trying to hightail it after these people have robbed us. They're trying to get out of maybe that's the one. The two utilities of our driveway are: one, you can sled here. Yes. Two is it's a hard escape if you rob us.
Absolutely.
From our back basement entrance.
If you drive down. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even if you're by foot, because you're going to slip on that black ice. But yeah, particularly in a truck. All right, my dear.
Well, I love you.
We did it. We did it again. I love you too.
Yes.
I'll catch you on the flip side without a jacket.
And tan.
And so tan.
No jacket and so tan.
Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode and we can reach even more rock stars like you. The Mothers is a production of Backline Media, shining a light on those who carry the team.